Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Recent incidences of falling trees, one that's killed a motorist and others that damaged vehicles and property, have highlighted the pressing need for better tree management policies in urban areas. Now, following these incidences, DBKL has been since instructed to closely monitor and maintain the shade trees in the capital city, but as a short-term measure to cut down the trees that have already been identified as at risk of falling. Now, we all know the benefits of having trees in our cities, but can we create conditions that allow them to thrive despite the very hostile environments they have to grow in? Joining me on the show today is Koh Cha-Ly. She's the founder and CEO of Urbanmetry, which is a data company that uses proprietary algorithms to analyze big data from cities. She's also a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Commission for Nature Positive Cities. Charlie, thank you for being on the show with me today. I want to get your thoughts on the fact that DBKL has said recently it's identified 175 high-risk trees. Out of those, 147 have already been cut down and another 28 will soon be felled. I mean, how do we think about this? How do you view this move?
So thank you for having me. And I think my first reaction to the news was obviously I'm very, very saddened, right? So these are very, very high valued trees. It took them a long, long time to grow to this. And they are huge assets, right? They're huge assets, both monetarily, environmentally, and socially for our cities, right? And I've been trying to lobby and try to use my personal avenues to do something about it, primarily because I think the act of identifying the 175 trees and then the 28 trees being slated to be felled. How did they get there in the first place, right? So how did they get to the point that they are high risk in the first place? It is not an overnight thing. It is not even in the last 2 years. It takes them 140 years to grow. It doesn't take them 6 months to rot, you know? So if we take the option of just cutting it and be done with it, I think we will not learn our lesson. We will not learn a better tree management process because it is highly reactionary and we are reacting to the fear of the folks in the city, right? So, oh, I'm going to drive by. What if the tree falls on me? You know, obviously that's a real fear, but is it overblown, right? To a certain extent. So my main concern is if we allow the get rid quick option of just getting rid of the trees, we will never know or learn how to deal with these national treasures on a long term.
Well, Prime Minister Anwar has already said that, you know, for every 100 trees that have been felled, for every unnecessary tree, if I may quote him, for every unnecessary tree felled, for DBKL to plant another 100 in replacement. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a way to mitigate the decline of urban tree cover? Is it going to be a viable solution?
I think in many ways the math doesn't add up, right? So if you think about a tree canopy of the tree that fell 140 years, I think the overall tree canopy is probably at least 4,000 or 5,000 square feet of tree canopy. It probably has tons of biodiversity. It's worth 1.2 million, right? I think some arborists valued it at 1.2 million. 100 sort of like ungrown trees, how high is it? You know, how big is that one tree? In fact, like I think a pretty matured 1.5 meter tree costs you about 500 ringgit, right? Even if you have 1,000 of them, right? You're only talking about 500,000 ringgit worth of trees, right? You have that one tree that's 1.2 million. Even if you have 1,000, it doesn't justify the canopy, the biodiversity, and the value that tree brings to the system. I think this whole idea of like disposable trees, oh, we can just cut one and have 100 more, it doesn't work. And I think the time element of growing that tree it goes exponential. And the fact that when it is fully matured, and that's when You know, like people used to say, you know, one generation plants a tree, another generation enjoys the shade, right? How are you going to do that if every 10 years or 30 years, you're just going to cut it down? 140 years. You cannot even equate those two. And to be very honest, I'm going to give you some stats because, you know, Urbanmetry CEO, right? Basically, KL, despite all the greening efforts, despite all the... So I used to be the project manager for Greener KL under the Economic Transformation Program. And we spent millions planting 100,000 trees. So I was tracking every tree that was planted. This is like 12, 15 years ago. And what happened to all those millions if you're just going to cut them down anyway? Like if you're not going to spend money to maintain them, right? So that's one monetary loss. The second monetary loss is, what about even with all those efforts of 100,000 trees planted, every year Kuala Lumpur is still losing about 8 hectares worth of tree coverage, tree canopy coverage. Albeit, this is a lot better than Selangor, which is losing about 10,000 hectares of trees canopy, but you're still losing, you're net negative. You know, we're talking about nature positive cities. You have to reverse that trend. And to be very honest, KL is losing less tree canopy because we have no more tree canopy to lose. So it's sort of like your bank account has not enough money. Of course, you lose less. There's less to lose because you have no money. So it is the same sort of concept. If we keep doing this, how are you going to buy back 30 years of dividend of a tree?
Right. So DBKL has already said that not all trees are under their purview, that some are on private land and that's the responsibility of the landowner. If we think about cities and the way cities function, most of it's businesses and commercial property, right, Cha-Ly? So how do we think about that, fostering a culture of environmental stewardship among private citizens, but also corporate citizens?
Very good question. So under the Economic Transformation Program, Greener KL, when I used to be project manager, we were very active about getting corporate sponsors. So there was another tree that fell in Jalan Pinang, which was under the Jalan Pinang, very nice tall trees. That was a sponsorship project by Standard Chartered. So we worked with Standard Chartered. Standard Chartered spent millions, maintaining those trees. But I think more recently, that sponsorship program has ended. I think the lease to the land for their sponsorship was 7 years. And after that, I don't know what happened, whether they had continuous funds to maintain it with the end of that sponsorship. So then the tree fell, right? So all these things comes with the fact that what is the monetary value for corporate and private citizens and private landowners to do national service? Literally, when you plant a tree, you're providing national service. You're trying to be nature positive. You're contributing oxygen. You're contributing shade, biodiversity, all these things. What is my motivation? How do I gain from this other than tax incentives? Obviously, the tax incentives is not enough because we are not fully monetizing the asset and the dividends that it pays, right? So it is easy to fall trees, like to cut the trees, if you don't put a price tag to say that's what it costs, right? So for the trees that has been identified to cut, nobody talks about what is the net loss monetary wise. Is it 28 million? Is it 56 million that we are losing? Because once you do that, I think everybody will start go like, whoa, you know, it is not the cost to just cut the tree. I have to spend 56 million plus each tree will probably cost you like 200,000 to cut them. Is that okay to cut it down? Because that is a building. 56 million, you can buy a building in KL. So if you do that, people will be like, oh, that's crazy. You're going to like put down the building, but it's okay if it's a tree, is it? So it doesn't, if you want folks to make sense of it, you have to equate it to money, unfortunately.
Okay, so because you are part of the World Economic Forum's Global Commission for Nature Positive Cities, I want to get your thoughts on how other countries are doing it and what you would like policymakers here to pay attention to. So how are other countries taking care of their trees in the city, and what would it take for Malaysia to become this nature positive city, KL to become a nature positive city?
Very, very good question. So I was looking into this, and I've concluded that it is a money problem.
Okay.
It is a money problem primarily because we see the street trees as a cost with no monetary benefits, right? So because of that, the funds after tree planting, we are very good at, giving 100 million or 10 million to plant trees, but we don't talk about how do we maintain the trees? Where does the funds come from to maintain the trees? So in other countries, so if you think about Adelaide has a really good street tree program. San Francisco has a really good street tree program as well, and many, many other countries, because the way they think about it is you need to you need to support the human population survival in the city with the trees in the city. So the tree actually supports your living, right? It brings water, etc. So for every house that is approved, so every unit of homes that's approved in Adelaide and San Francisco, you have to plant one tree. So if a developer builds 500 houses, they have to plant 500 trees. Okay, that's it. The first thing developers or my developer clients will go like, where am I going to find space to plant 500 trees, Charlie? Right? Okay, understand. But what you need to do is actually, if you cannot plant that 500 trees on your high-rise development, a contribution is required to the city council in order for them to maintain street trees in your neighborhood, in public land, to support the folks that's living in your condominium. So you're bringing 500 families to this location. They need to breathe, right? They need oxygen. They need, shade. They need to cool the city. So if the government or DBKL is going to maintain these trees to support the livelihoods of your home buyers, better give them money to maintain these trees. And really what I'm trying to say is that the landscape fund has to be a live fund. If we have 100,000 trees, you need the budget to maintain the 100,000 tree, and not, let it grow for 15 years. One tree, it rots, a tree falls, somebody dies, and then we cut another 100. That is kind of insanity.
Cha-Ly, thank you so much for sharing those insights. I really appreciate your time. That was Koh Cha-Ly, the founder and CEO of Urbanmetry there. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our conversation about how we can take better care of our trees in the city. This after several instances of trees falling during bad weather, damaging vehicles and property, and in one case, tragically taking a motorist's life. Joining me on the show now is Mohd Zailani Jamil, who is the president of the Malaysia Society for Arboriculture. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Zailani. In the case of the tree that fell on Jalan Sultan Ismail, I'm just wondering what lessons we can learn regarding urban forestry and tree care management in hopes that we can prevent similar incidences in the future.
Okay, one thing is that tree is give a very good beneficial to human. So if the tree is old and it shows that is how many years that we have already help us in order to purify our city with a high carbon monoxide and so on. So when we decide that the tree to be keep right in the city, firstly is that we have to learn what about the trees. So trees have been there so many years, meaning is that there is no disturbance and no human nearby, the tree can grow by itself. But the things that very important is that when we do development and we are near to the tree, we tend to touch and disturb the tree, especially when the roots. No, the Malay say is that kuat pokok kerana akar. So meaning is that the first thing is that the roots must be intact and must be in good health so that the tree perform what it should be.
Okay. So I mean, this is a basic question, but what do roots need to thrive? What causes root failure that will lead to the declining health of urban trees?
Okay, one thing is that when you disturb the tree, meaning is that when you do work near the tree with the machineries, without the knowledge, you injure the trees. Now, the trees cannot heal like human. The trees only seal, meaning is that it's only cover and closure whatever wound that we already did to the trees. So it takes time. It takes time to closure, and that is the process of the defense that the tree have it by itself. But during that process, the pathogen may come into the tree without our knowledge. We cannot see. It's underground. All right. So this happened, and this may reduce the strength of the wood in the tree. So this process cannot be seen if you already dump out or fill up the area with soil or with the what you call is not a good soil that can encourage growth for the new roots to replace the old root that injuries. So this is very, very important. So when we talk about trees, we will have to provide whatever the tree needs, especially the space under the construction, where we still encourage roots to grow and to strengthen the tree, because the tree increase the size. Once the tree increase the size, they need more roots to encourage. And remember, the tree have 2-3 times of the root grow laterally of the height. Meaning is that if the tree is the height is 4 meters, then the roots can go up to 8 meters to 12 meters.
Oh, wow. Okay, I am thinking of all the underground rail and the basement parkings and all the things in the city. So if these trees, if urban trees, big trees, shade trees, they need lots of green buffer space for their roots to grow, how is that even possible in a city, in a concrete jungle like KL? Do trees belong in cities, Encik Zailani?
Oh, of course, the tree, when we talk about urban, we set up the urban. But before the urban is a jungle. So meaning is that we have to learn how the tree grow. So you're talking about whatever infrastructure that we have, the tree only grow up to 3 feet down. 3 feet down. But it can grow laterally up to 2 to 3 times of the height. Meaning is that we still have the space. We only provide the space where the root can grow, and we do not disturb anything. So you have underground utility, go below the 3 feet, below the 4 feet. Okay. So this is what important is to understand what the tree needs, and others discipline to chip in ideas how to grow a tree in the city.
Okay, all right. So having this multidisciplinary input of how to take care of our trees in the city, I do want to ask you, I mean, urban greening in Malaysia tends to emphasize beautification. It's always landscaping, right? Not so much urban forestry. So how can we shift towards a more nature positive urban forestry model?
Okay, there is something to look at, because we have our own native and indigenous species, but only thing is not all the species can be bring into the urban. So we have to select the one that is strongly and can achieve our goal of having a green balance to the development. So in the city itself, we can see is that maybe a large tree is not belong to the city, but some of the tree already there. So how to keep the tree is already existent before the development this is come, where all the input of the different discipline to make sure that the tree is in the safe and have normal growth, not stress growth, normal growth. And secondly is that if we introduce something is new, that we make sure that the tree that we introduce can grow in a normal way. Meaning is that we have to mimic the nature. We cannot also simply alter to let the tree to grow. This is will increase the maintenance, because when you keep anything that is nature to the tree, meaning is that we do the work very less. Agriculture is talking about trees, maintenance, tree health, taking care of tree with a minimum cost, because we don't believe that high cost can bring you something. Damn thing is what's called or delightful or something that you that to be there.
Right.
All right.
So the idea is going forward, hopefully we have better tree care management policies, which include input from arborists like yourself that look at urban forestry input into this. So can I ask you, now we have this conundrum where DBKL has identified high-risk trees at high risk of falling during bad weather, and they're going to chop them down as because they are at risk of falling. So can I ask you, is there any other solution that we can consider before felling these trees?
Maybe it's that nightmare is happening to everybody. But then they have to follow a certain step before they chop down the trees. It's not. It's that if the tree is in a high risk and possibilities of the tree to fail in the future, then it is time to take off the tree. But then is that if the tree is in good condition, then we have to improve surrounding of the tree so that we still can keep the tree in a good manner.
In terms of like practical things, right? How do other countries do it? How do other countries make sure that trees in the city who are already trying to grow under such challenging and hostile conditions and environments, how do other countries allow those trees to thrive in an urban environment?
It's the same thing that they apply on if the tree is fit to be there, then they have to improve all the facilities or whatever facilities and whatever space or whatever the tree needs to grow in a normal way. Then the inspection come regularly and they have something. So it's not that everything that you must keep. Is what to keep is very important. And secondly is that before they do any preservation or keeping the trees, like there is a words that I like to highlight is preservation, because preservation is something that you keep as it is. There is very less cost to it. But conservation is a very bad thing to do, because conservation is something that already disturbed or destroyed, then you put the money to get it back to the original. So two things must be clearly to understand. So once the tree is kept, that means you are wanted, then the tree must be preserved. Preserve in order is that you have the step how to preserve a tree. Whatever infrastructure nearby, you have to design it. You have to do it so that the soil itself, the content of the moist to the roots grows, and all the process that the tree needs is favorable to the tree, not favorable to the human. Favorable to the tree.
Okay, very quickly, can I ask you, what would you like to see both federal government, the ministry at the FT level, but also state governments? What would you like them to focus on?
Very important. This is a time that they have to put the effort and put fund to it. All right, and that especially financial support to the state government and the local government through the grant or whatever, and seeing that urban forestry is a very important in the living city. So when you talk about a new project, a new township and everything, the words always you sell is livable. So what is livable? Right? The concept of livable. And you are selling what? Totally about urban ecology. What is urban ecology? There must be a balance between trees and human and animal. So fauna and interaction of develop of the ecology system that you want. And then secondly is that you government should fund all the PBTs and all these people who are in the tree care and dealing with trees to be certified through a accreditation of certification of arborists that we have conducted 22 times now. Over the 10 years, already 22 times, right? 20 years, yeah, over 20 years, 22 times, right? So we want that everybody knows and how to, and especially is that they understand and how they can legislatively, meaning is that to make sure that this policy is being carried out. And then secondly is that we always showing that the green is very important. We don't want that our green is under pressure, that they cannot do well when we hoping that the trees and the trees that we plant doing well. That is very important. And secondly, and the thirdly, very important is that give the incentive to the local authorities or the private sector who want to keep trees, because trees cannot be placed is overnight. If the tree is valued for 1 million, you cannot take 1 million and put another tree. It's not there, right? So very important incentive, very important, so that people are looking forward and give them incentive that is flexible, something that is so that, and then they must show what they are capable of doing. So this is very important, and legislation protect is very important also.
I understand. Zailani, thank you for being on the show with me today. That was Mohd Zailani Jamil from the Malaysian Society of Arboriculture, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.